Welcome, everyone, to number 2 in our series of See Me Stories on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, sponsored by Deloitte LLP. I'm Mary Medley, CEO of the Colorado Society of CPAs, and I'm delighted to have you with us today. We are so fortunate that Caitlin O'Neill is going to be sharing her story, Not a Puzzle Piece, Being Autistic in the Work World. Caitlin is a senior tax accountant at CBiz MHM in the Denver office. Outside of work, she's the business representative on the board of directors of Colorado's Future Business Leaders of America. Also, she gives back to her sorority chapter as the alumni relations advisor for the Epsilon Gamma chapter of Alpha Omicron Pi. And she is an active member of the Colorado Society of CPAs and is serving on our new DE&I working group. She's a proud cat mom of 2 and just your typical millennial who loves to spend time with friends and family. Caitlin, thank you for joining us today. Welcome again, everyone who is on, and we look forward to hearing Caitlin's story. Take it away, Caitlin.
Thank you so much, Mary. So, as she's already said, not a puzzle piece, and I just want to say I use the word autistic deliberately, and I'll explain why later, even though you may be a little controversial, but I'll explain. But as Mary so kindly says, yes, I am a senior tax associate, and I graded with my Bachelor of Science from UNC, and no, it's not the one that's good at baseball, it's the one in Greeley. And I also graduated with my Master's of Taxation from DU. So just your average, I'm a tax nerd. That's all I can say. All right. And before we start going deep into my story, I'm going to provide a few definitions that I think will be useful. So autism, I really like this definition from the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Society. It is a pervasive developmental disability that impacts communication, movement, and sensory processing. For me, it manifests in several ways. For me, I have a lot of sensory processing issues. So when I was a kid, I wouldn't wear jeans until I was in 4th grade because I didn't like how they felt. And also for me, I had a hard time reading social cues. So I didn't understand if someone was joking or not. And I had a hard time looking people in the eye. But I want to say it is a very wide spectrum, and it can manifest itself differently in individuals. So it is very individualistic. And neurotypical is basically a non-autistic person or people. And ableism is the intentional or unintentional discrimination or oppression of individuals with disabilities. All right, so let's begin. And we're going to start with the Americans with Disabilities Act. It just celebrated its 31st year of being enacted by President H.W. Bush. It makes it unlawful to discriminate against employment against a qualified individual with a disability. And you have to have a record of having a substantial disability that significantly limits or restricts a major life activity. And that said individual must be qualified to perform the essential functions or duties of a job with or without reasonable accommodations, and it can't be an undue burden to my employers. So in my case, in my first year of being at CBiz, I was I think it was like November, December, it was a pretty slow time that I was assigned to help staple tax organizers together. And one of the way that autism manifests itself in me is like I have my fine motor skills aren't that great, and it didn't turn out that great, but it is not an essential function of my job. So CBiz, so all they did is so I was able to keep my job, and no, I don't staple tax organizers anymore. So, but yes, and this is incredibly important, throughout my entire life, because I don't know where I'd be without the ADA. All right. So my childhood. So it was about 3 years after the ADA. So for those accountants good at math, you can guess how old I am. So I was always a bit off when I was a kid. My parents took me to a Rocky game when I was really young, and I would not stop crying. So they actually had to leave. And also as I grew up, I would have these intense interests. I mean, I would get all the books about animals, Henry VIII, and Russian, like Anastasia and the Russian Revolution. And it was, and I, not very, not normal things a kid would be interested, you'd think. And things were okay until I got to primary school, and around third grade, my teacher noticed that I wasn't making friends and that I was generally and my handwriting was very illegible, I had a hard time with not having writing things legibly. And she was like, okay, we might need to get her an individual education plan. And my parents were like, oh no, maybe not. So I got sent to psychiatrists and doctors, and there was misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis. And they put me on some medicine that I had an extremely bad reaction to. And also there was a long wait time to get me an appointment with Children's Hospital. But when I got the appointment, and this was about a year later, so when I was in fourth grade, I was finally diagnosed with Asperger syndrome. This is an outdated term. It's now autism spectrum disorder, but for autism, it was because I am verbal and because some people with ASD are not, and that I was succeeding in school, I was considered high functioning, which is it's a really outdated term. It just, because we don't use that with any other individuals. We don't say a senior is high or low functioning. Like my grandpa, who's 94, very independent. He, still trading and taking care of himself. He has a girlfriend. But my grandmother, when she was alive, she had to have more supports when she got older. So we wouldn't say that one was low or high functioning. And I can assure you, during the pandemic, there were some times that I was not highly functioning. So, and then things continued. I was still, and also, I want to show you this video that really emphasized how, like for me, being diagnosed, it was a blessing and a curse for me, because I was like, having some associated with autism, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing in the world, and that I'm going to hide it from everyone. And I'm going to show you a video that from a very prominent autism advocacy organization that will explain why I felt the way I did. Okay, and please give your thumbs up if you can see it or hear the video once. Can everyone hear?
Autism.
Okay.
We can hear.
I'm visible in your children, but if I can help it, I am invisible to you until it's too late.
We can hear it.
I know where you live.
Sorry?
We can hear it, but we can't see it.
Okay, okay.
Might be on a different monitor.
Oh, okay. Let's try that again.
There you go.
Okay. Let's make. Can you hear and see it?
I am autism. I'm visible in your children, but if I can help it, I am invisible to you until it's too late. I know where you live, and guess what? I live there too. I hover around all of you. I know no color barrier, no religion, no morality, no currency. I speak your language fluently, and with every voice I take away, I acquire yet another language. I work very quickly. I work faster than pediatric AIDS, cancer, and diabetes combined. And if you are happily married, I will make sure that your marriage fails. Your money will fall into my hands, and I will bankrupt you for my own self-gain. I don't sleep, so I make sure you don't either. I will make it virtually impossible for your family to easily attend a temple, a birthday party, a public park, without a struggle, without embarrassment, without pain. You have no cure for me. Your scientists don't have the resources, and I relish their desperation. Your neighbors are happier to pretend that I don't exist, of course, until it's their child. I am autism. I have no interest in right or wrong. I derive great pleasure out of your loneliness. I will fight to take away your hope. I will plot to rob you of your children and your dreams. I will make sure that every day you wake up, you will cry, wondering who will take care of my child after I die. And the truth is, I am still winning, and you are scared. And you should be. I am autism. You ignored me. That was a mistake.
And to autism I say,
I am a father,
a mother,
a grandparent,
a brother,
a sister.
We will spend every waking hour trying to weaken you.
We don't need sleep because we will not rest until you do.
Family can be much stronger than autism ever anticipated, and we will not be intimidated by you, nor will the love and strength of my community.
I am a parent riding towards you, and you can push me off this horse time and time again, but I will get up, climb back on, and ride on with the message.
Autism, you forget who we are. You forget who you are dealing with. You forget the spirit of mothers and daughters and fathers and sons.
We are
the United Kingdom.
The United States.
We are Argentina.
We are the European Union.
We are the United Nations.
We are coming together in all climates.
We call on all faiths. We search with technology
And voodoo.
prayer and
Herbs, genetic studies,
And a growing awareness you never anticipated.
We have had challenges, but we are the best when overcoming them.
we speak the only language that matters, love for our children.
Our capacity to love is greater than your capacity to overwhelm.
autism is naive.
you are alone.
We are a community of warriors.
We have a voice.
You think because some of our children cannot speak, we cannot hear them? That is autism's weakness.
You think that because my child lives behind a wall, I am afraid to knock it down with my bare hands?
You have not properly been introduced to this community of parents and grandparents, of siblings and friends and school teachers, therapists, pediatricians and scientists.
Autism, if you are not scared, you should be.
When you came for my child, you forgot.
You came for me.
Autism, are you listening?
All right. Okay. Oh, all right. Let me share my screen again. All right.
Thank you for that, Caitlin. It was very, very, very informative and moving.
Yes. And I just want to say that was made in '09. So it's not as distant as you may think it was. So yes, I'll be the first one to admit there's challenges with autism, that with my executive functioning, it's hard for me sometimes to organize and to get things done. But I just want to tell you all, I just got my physical like a month ago. I am perfectly healthy. I do not have this little autism boogeyman running around my head. Like if you try to cut my head open, a little monster isn't going to pop out. And also, my parents are going to be celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary in this September. So me being autistic did not destroy their marriage. And also, my family is very financially comfortable. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yes, that video really shows like autism was a bad thing, and I wanted to hide it. I wanted to pretend that I didn't want to have anything to do with accommodations. I didn't want to be like, no, I am not autism. Because I'm not this monster. So I continued this way, and then I reached into my high school. Like I went to high school. Yes, that's me, circa 2011, when my FBLA state officer with another state officer. So around my mom, so I have to give a disclaimer. So my mom was a special education teacher, so she knew how to get accommodations. Even if I didn't want them, she's like, you're gonna have them. So I got time and a half on tests, and there were some others. But in unison, I didn't have a lot, or if any, real friends. So I had a lot of free time. So know what I did? I joined sports and clubs. I walked onto the track team and made varsity and went to state and cross country. Yeah, so yes. And more importantly, my freshman year, I joined Future Business Leaders of America, or FBLA. And I really liked the advisor, Mrs. Catherine Tachik. I'll just refer to her as Mrs. Tachik. It feels weird calling her by her first name even now, but she really helped me, and I became an officer, and then I was even selected to represent District 6 as their vice president. I organized the district conference for Future Business Leaders of America, and I just got hooked into business. And this was a good thing because this is around the time I was looking at college, seeing what I'm going to major in. And as I said before, I was a big history buff. So I was thinking I'm going to major in history, but my grandmother who was going to be paying for my college did not agree with that. So, and then I realized, oh, there's an accounting class that I could take with Mrs. Tatchett. Great. And I got hooked, the debits and credits and equity and all that fun. So I decided, and I can say this because I think most of us are accountants, or at least financially, like finance, our fields were related to finance. I looked at the job prospects for when I was about to, what they were looking like, and it was good. So the world needs accountants. So I was like, I'm going to major in accounting. And I did. I even went to Mrs. Tatchett's alma mater, the UNC, or the University of Northern Colorado. And I still had my accommodations and my time and a half, which is necessary because my nerves, I can still learn and I can still process things. It just is more slowly, and especially with my bad handwriting, I really need the extra time to make sure my handwriting is legible, because after 2 rounds of occupational therapy, it is, even to this day, it's not the best. but that doesn't matter now because I use computers to type most everything. So, and at UNC, I had a great college experience. I had it was light and day compared to my primary school. Like I had, within a few weeks of me going to UNC, I pledged my sorority, and I, for the first time in my life, had a great group of friends, and I was open about being autistic, and I was accepted, and not only just accepted, but celebrated for who I was. And not only did I have great friends, I had great professors that really encouraged me to spread my wings, and they taught me how to be a better professional. And I joined Beta Alpha Psi, so I was not able to connect with accounting professionals and my fellow peers. And Mary Medley I actually saw her speak at my Beta Alpha Psi meeting. So yes, and I had one professor, Dr. Michelle, I call her Li Laosher, that's the Chinese name, Dr. Michelle Lo. She encouraged me to study abroad since I was studying Chinese. So I went to Taiwan and spent 3 months there. And I learned so much about myself and increased my confidence and my cultural awareness. And I just want to say again that my professors, and I'm sorry if I forget any one of them, like Professor Dickey, Professor Turner, Professor McConnell, and forgive me if I missed anyone. You all helped me become the person I am, and that's the thing. Teachers always had high expectations of me, so I met them and exceeded them. And then I had a few months, instead of going straight to a job, or even because I had some time between my internship and going to DU, instead of traveling abroad again or doing anything really fun, I decided to study for my CPA. Yes, that was my things. And I went to my master's at DU, which I coincided. And I just want to say, I studied and I passed all 4 tests the first time, and without accommodations, because the thing about asking for accommodations is it can be difficult, and some people can make it extremely hard to get them. At the time, it seemed too much effort for me. So I decided, no, I want to get my notice to study without accommodations, and I did. And I still passed. But in my grad school, I still had my accommodations. And as you can see from my diploma, I graduated. And then I had a few months, and then I was working at Olive Garden, but then a few months later, I joined CBiz. And I want to go over the recruiting and interviewing experience, because between 2014 and 2017, I must have gone through probably 40. I'm not joking. Interviews between my internship and my full-time position. It was just with my disability, it was really hard for me to master small talk, and it was like I was really awkward at first, but got better. And I also went to career services, and then I did multiple, mock interviews and multiple resume things. So my resume was perfect. So even though on resume I was perfect, the interviews were very difficult for me, and that's why it was really why I had so many of them. And it was just, and I would have like a set routine to make sure that I was masking appropriately. Masking just means pretending to not be autistic. So making sure I was doing eye contact, making sure I'm not rambling. So yes, so I would do my hair, like I would doll up, like it would take like 1 or 2 hours to get my hair like completely straightened and my makeup, like I was perfect. And then like the day of, it was just very exhausting for me. So I had an interview one time from like a second round interview from 8 to like 11 or 12. And my first class wasn't until 4. So you think, oh, you're fine. I like crashed like right after the interview. I think I had like a 2 or 3 hour nap. And then even then I still fell asleep in one of my classes. So it was just extreme. I just want to say masking and pretending not to be autistic is exhausting. But, despite this, I landed a great, I'm still here after 3.5 years at CBiz. And yes, that is me with shorter hair, and this is what I looked like before some busy season sucked bits of my soul out. But like most first-time associates, I was sent to the cubes, and it was a very interesting experience because there was a group of 3. Well, there was 4 of us, and the 3 of them were all audit professionals and all guys. So I stood out like a threesome already because I am obviously in tax, and I'm obviously like, I'm cis. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a woman. And it was like, they were very nice and they were very welcoming, just like like everyone was there. But it was just, that's why I decided not to be open at first with being autistic, because I'm like, I already stick out. I don't need another reason to be different. And it was just not like, for some of us that can remember what it was like for first times, it was already overwhelming. And I didn't have the best organization at the time. But despite this, I had like a great group of people that were willing to work with me and that helped me. But despite the welcome, there was an HR professional, and we didn't have a miscommunication. Like when I was struggling, I was asking if there was possible accommodations, and she said that CBiz was doing all that they could, and I was like, okay, and that she even suggested that I might be better at another place. So I was like, okay, and I was really unsure of my performance, and I was really unsure of my place because I still was feeling like a sore thumb, So I decided not to tell anybody from, and any of my work colleagues about any of this. And even when I asked her, okay, can I move like a cube over so I'm out of the hustle and bustle, she said that I needed to fill out this like form, or I don't know. It just seemed like sort of like the getting accommodations for my CPA exam. It seemed that it would be too much hassle, and I decided not to do it. And it was just, so the first like 6 months or so, I was really like struggling. I was unsure of like, should I be in public accounting? Should I be in accounting in general? It was really hard for me, but luckily, I just want to emphasize I had such a great team. And I also have some good news. That HR professional, since I have to say she had a background in recruiting, so she wasn't too familiar with the ADA, and she decided to go back to recruiting. So I got a wonderful HR professional like Sarah Newey. She is amazing, and I was able to get work accommodations because she did understand how autism worked. And here's just some of my accommodations. Like, I'm in an office, so I got so at my firm, seniors and above can get offices, but I was able to get mine around like the second year that I was here. So it really helped me, focus, that I didn't have to do another full-time job of trying to understand what the other people were saying and trying to figure out if they were joking or not, because I can assure you, because I was during 2018, any of my ex-boyfriends can attest, any movie that we watched past 6 p.m., I would fall asleep during it because I was so physically drained, not only trying to do my tax work, but I also was trying to do the work of trying to figure out what they were saying, if they were joking. It was quite exhausting. And also I had the ability to work from home, and also after I had to get a doctor's note saying that actually I still have autism, and they capped my hours during busy season. Trust me, I'm still full-time. And also, this is what they do for everyone, which I think is great. We have written procedures, so I can just read over it again and again, which really helped me at the beginning. And the PowerPoints are given before trainings, like our national trainings, so I can focus on, instead of trying to take notes, because it's really hard for me to multitask, I can just participate and focus on learning. And I just want to emphasize, like, the reason why I'm here and that I'm successful is because throughout my entire life, I had a group of people that believed in me. And that even if it meant sitting and teaching me how to roll retained earnings and equity for, I just wanted to say that. And I just want to give a shout out to Sarah Newey, Sarah Jackson, Kirby Johnson, Sherry Alba, Andrew Rada, Nate Napoli, Jeff Raisin, and Tim West, Rachel Roberts. And there's a bunch of people at this firm that I want to thank. And I'm sorry if I missed your name. They all supported me and kept me. And even when it was difficult, they still helped me through the times and helped me develop a good system. As you can say, I'm a senior associate. I've been promoted. I've been here for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Going to be 4 this January. So I'm doing something right. And it's not just because public accounting for an experience level is understaffed. And here are some things that may surprise you. And I'm going to put a caveat. This may be controversial, and this is clear. This is just my opinion, and this is my experience and how I identify. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. This is not sponsored by COPA, or Deloitte. All right. As I think you can guess by that video, I am not a fan of Autism Speaks. Actually, yeah, that's a very light way of describing it. And here are some reasons why. Historically, they have excluded autistic people from leadership, and they have not done a great job of listening to our concerns. And right now, they spend a lot of their money in research or looking for an autism gene, which I'm just looking at the history with what they did with Down syndrome, and I'll be honest, that doesn't bode well for me. And also, if you look at their financial reports, most of the money does not go to help directly help autistic people. And I'm just going to be honest, like, according to, it's a 2019 report, and it was in Britain, that it's like 22% of autistic people at work. So I'm in the minority. And if you want to look at how much I make, I'm probably in even a bigger minority. So it is, and also the average age in America, from the American Journal of Medicine or something, it's like 36, 37. So I only have like 9 years left if I die if I die at the average age. But a lot of that has to do with suicide, because as you can tell, like, living in a world that arguably hates they hate how our brain works, they hate how we communicate. You can't get a job, people are telling you something's wrong with you. I'm not condoning it, I just want to make that perfectly clear, but you can understand why someone may feel the need to end their life. So if any group needs support, that's autistic people. And it's really disheartening that such a prominent organization does not give a lot of their money to help those. And also, as you can tell from the video, their campaigns and awareness programs has historically stigmatized autism and autistic people. Like the Light Up Blue events, the reason why it's blue is because it's more commonly associated with men, because that's how because the research has been focused on men and how it manifests in men, because I've known quite a few women that were diagnosed in their 20s. Like, I was diagnosed fairly early for a woman, and I was 10 years old, while a guy, like, I think it's like 3. So, and also, they are part of the reason why I don't like April, other than as a tax accountant, I'll fully admit the beginning of April's hard for me. I have deadlines, I'm exhausted. And then on Facebook, I have a lot of good meaning people that are like, light up blue, autism awareness. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I say something? Do I not? So it's like, it's hard. So April's hard for me. So, and also they popularized the puzzle piece, which implies something is missing from autistic people. Nothing is missing in me. I have a pretty great life. I've had boyfriends. I've traveled by myself, and I have 2 cats. I love animals. I volunteer. I'm on a board, and I'm working with a degree that I'm actually my degree is actually useful in. So yes, nothing is missing from my life. Do I have struggles? Absolutely. But I'm not missing anything. And also I am a big proponent of identity first language. I know that some people prefer person first language, and I know this is just simply my opinion, and I have no problem with other people on the spectrum identifying with person first language. But I use identity first language. First off, one of the reasons why they say oh, it separates the person from the disease. Well, autism isn't a disease. It's basically how my mind works. I am basically a Mac in a world of PCs. There is nothing wrong with how my brain operates. And it also is very validating, saying that I'm a person. I don't need and so it's very validating that I am a person. I am worthy of accommodations. And I'm also, with person first language, it separates the autism from the person, which that is not how it works. I cannot take my autism off like my bag, or that I can't leave it at home or when I go to work, or it is with me, and it's how I interact with the world. That's how I see the world and how I process the world. It's part of who I am just as much as being a woman is. And also, I'm a big proponent of the social model of disability. There is a great TED Talk by Sarah Young that I will leave in the comments later that really describes how that disability is more socially constructed than health constructed. That same as a person with vision problems, they will have a really hard time, but they can be disabled. But with glasses, assuming when I say vision impaired, I don't mean blind but with glasses, they can be a part of society and see the world and that my performance and my life well-being is much more consistent when I have accommodations, when I have a group of supportive people helping me with accommodations. When I don't have my accommodations, then yes, I am more disabled, that I have a hard time, doing as well as my peers when I don't have my accommodations, then I struggle. But when I have my accommodations, I thrive. And also, here are some things that I just want to preface. A lot of well-meaning people have said this, and I'm not, denying that, but saying that you don't look autistic. First off, autism doesn't have a look, and saying that you're not disabled or autistic is you're saying that autism is inherent. You're subtly saying that autism, there's something wrong with autism, which they're not. And I don't like this further stigmatization of my diagnosis, and saying that I'm lucky to have accommodations. No, I'm not. It's just for me to have a level playing field. And to be honest, this was a life journey. I use my accommodations whenever I can. I'm one of those first people that can get boarded on the plane because it's with my sensory processing issues, and I have no shame about that. And the high functioning thing, I think I addressed that earlier, but it's not a good way. Autism is a spectrum. Someone may not be verbal, but that doesn't mean they're low functioning. Amy Sequenza is nonverbal, and she has done multiple campaigns. She's she is communicated very eloquently, and I don't say that she's low functioning, and just because I'm considered high function doesn't mean that I function highly all the time. It's a spectrum. Someone may be better at executive functioning. Someone may be better at like I have a friend who's autistic that she doesn't have her fine motor skills are great, and she draws beautifully, and I have chicken scratch. So, and Light Up Blue, I think I covered that before. And any cures for autism? No, I do not want a cure. It's saying, would you change who you are? And I like who I am. As I said before, I think I'm pretty, people seem to like me at work. I'm still here, and I have lots of friends and who really care for me. And going on with that, you're inspirational. I am not inspirational for existing as an autistic person. Sarah Young also addresses this, but I am not inspirational for going to the grocery store or going to work during busy season, even though it may seem like that sometimes, but you're not an inspiration just to go for doing everyday life. Like, I've done cool things, but I'm not an inspiration. I'm not here to inspire you to think like, oh, my life could be so much worse. And I'm like, I actually have a pretty good life. And I just want to say, like, I want to preface this. I know there's a lot of difficulties with, my mom had some difficulty, and my parents had difficulties with raising me. And it wasn't because I was autistic. They're facing a world with ableism, and they're trying to help me fight outside forces that are beyond their control. So yes, but I want to say, being a parent is hard. Being a parent to an autistic child is hard. But I'm really, and I see myself in parents as allies, that I want to help them so that their children don't go through what I went through, that they don't get bullied excessively during primary school, which I didn't really get into, but on and off, it was really terrible. That I want them to get accommodations. But it's really hard when they're like, oh, I'm a fighting autism, that autism is this boogeyman that's destroying my family, or like posting videos of their kids and with meltdowns. No, that is not a good awareness. It's only further stigmatizing the disease. And I don't like when parents speak over or think that they know more than actual autistic people. We know what it's like to be that age. We know what we need. And we're here for you. We want to help you. And it's hard when you are saying that, like, being like acting like you're so special, not special, like acting like that you're trying to fight autism instead of, which is part of your kid. Like, as I said before, you're trying to fight, you're saying that, and it's really hurtful when you apply something that's inherently wrong with us. So I'm like, I really would like the end of the awareness videos of invading autistic children's privacy, because those are very personal things. And I see that and also any euphemism for disabled. It is what it, like, I don't like differently abled, or, you're only, like, there's a quote, there's fear that only in the word itself, or something around those lines. So it's like, we're just saying that autism is a big bad thing, or disability is a big bad thing. It's not. You can say it. Like, you can say that I'm skinny. You can say, like, I'm autistic. I know what I am. Saying that you're not, or like you're definitely abled, it's like that invalidates my experience, and it tries to make it. And also, I also have it like special education does leave a sour taste in my mouth, just because, trust me, when I said it, at least in my school, special didn't mean like, oh, you're so great. It meant those are they were the kids you didn't want to hang out with. So yep. And I'm also, here are some good autism advocacy organizations that are run and led by autistic people. And yes, and I think, and do we have any questions? I think I'm good on time, right?
Yes, you are, Caitlin. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm going to invite people to post questions in the chat, and I'll kick it off so that for those of you who just need to find your chat and write your question, you can get it done. So give us an example, if you would, for how you would say something that is identity first, and then what it would be word-wise if you are using person first language.
Absolutely. Like, so person first is saying, person first is saying that like you're disabled or I'm disabled. I'm going to use I because this is how I identify. Like I'm disabled and person first is I'm a person with autism. Like so she has autism. Person with, so it's like the point of person first is that they say like, oh, I'm putting the person first, like that they reminding people that they're person, that they are people first.
Oop, we froze you. Did we lose you? You'll need to take yourself off mute, Caitlin. You're back, but you're muted.
Okay. And
there you go. You're back.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I don't know what happened there. I'm at the office, so I'm really surprised. But yes, so it's like, so it's supposed to be that you remind, like, it's like a person with cancer, because it's like cancer doesn't define them. But why use identity first language? Because autism does define me, just as being a woman or being Christian, like that's how I identify. And I don't feel person and autism are separate, that they are with the same person. I don't want to be like, oh, you're a perfectly good person except for the autism. As I said before, I don't have a little mini autism monster running around causing havoc in my body. It's part of who I am. It's a different nerve processing system.
Thank you. So one of our participants asked if you could put the resources slide back up on your screen.
Okay, sounds good. And I got the Stella Young video. But
great. So that link is in the chat. Terrific.
Yep. And
okay.
I'm also
Go ahead.
There's also another YouTube video from like Amethyst, another autism advocate she goes into much bigger deep about why she doesn't like Autism Speaks. So that's another one and she also has a series called Ask an Autistic. So if you have questions, she is a great resource.
Thanks for putting that in the chat as well. So Austin asks, do you have any suggestions on how employers can better empower persons with autism in the workplace?
That is a really good question. I think because I'll be honest, I don't disclose it during an interview sometimes because of the stigmatization of it. But I think it's like during onboarding, they can say that we have we follow the ADA, that if you have a documented diagnosis, like please come to me and we can work with it. And also being willing, so not making it super difficult. Like all I had to do to get my capped hours, which you think would be unthinkable for public accounting. Like I just needed to put a doctor's note and I was able to do it. And partly because I have a large firm and resources, but I was able to do that. But having flexibility from working from home, because I understand not everyone can afford to give offices to every person, and being, if someone is showing signs, but I have to say, they have to, with the ADA, how it works, you can't just give accommodations to someone without documentation, but just the written procedures would really help, with, if you can just have that done, and just, being open about the ADA and just being accepting of, that even if someone seems a little off or weird, don't dismiss them.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
I think so. So Jeff asks, have you watched the series Atypical?
No, I have not. I've heard some things. I haven't. I've heard it's good, but it also, there is a stereotypical, that when he's really acting, some things, like, yes, you can be autistic and not be the best person. I have my own feelings about Elon Musk, but it's like, I don't think they do a good job. What I've seen of, other than they show a very stereotypical, like the guy, Sheldon Cooper, savant, autism, but it looks like some of his behaviors are just, he can just be rude. Like I can be honest. I can be rude sometimes, and it has nothing to me with being autistic. It could just be being like, I can say this, when I was a kid, I was being a little bit of a brat when I was a kid. But yes, so I'm not, I need to watch it more, but what little I've seen and what I've read, I'm not super impressed, but I will definitely like try to do more research. I want to see more representations of autism from like women and people of color, because all it is white men, and autism is just so diverse, and it breaks class, race, religion. Yeah. So did you think I answered the question? I have a tendency to ramble. That's part of the autism. So
you absolutely answered the question, Caitlin. Thank you. I'm checking the chat. And Jeff says, thank you for your answer as well.
But yeah, it's like, I think it needs to be more, but you said I saw the question, good, it could be better. That's all I'm going to, yeah.
So I want to come back to something that I wrote down that you said about saying things like differently abled invalidates your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about that.
All right. So with differently able, like calling like special, it is being cute. It's like, beating behind the bush, like saying, oh, and also with the Americans with Disabilities Act, it doesn't apply to me if I'm differently abled. It's not, just say it. Like and I think I'm a big believer in saying disabled, because I believe because there's so much fear around disability, and we don't like to talk about it, but if we don't talk about it, we don't get accommodations. And also, oh, what's next? Like, sorry, I saw the question. I'll finish. You can see how this is a thing of my executive function. I'm like focusing on one thing, and then something pops, and I'm like, then my thing focuses on that, and then it gets longer for me to get done. But the point being about differently abled, no, people don't treat differently abled as, people, I'm not saying all, I want to be like, not all, I want to make that perfectly clear, but in my experience, people have a really poor reaction of treating things differently. Say that I'm disabled, because that's my experience. My experience isn't that I'm differently able. Differently able, what does that even mean? Like, there's not a really good definition. And what does special mean? Because special at my school didn't mean, oh, they were the cool kids. They were the kids that no one sat with at lunch, that they were with a parapro and like you felt sorry for them. I do not want you to feel sorry for me. I have yes, I've had some bad experiences in my life. So have we all, but I have a really good life. Like, I'll be honest, but as I said, but yes, it invalidates my experience because it doesn't describe who I am or what I experience, because differently abled, that's like a cute name. Like, if I was differently abled, why was I bullied so intensely? Like, if I was differently abled, why was I struggling so much with work? I'm disabled.
Okay, I'm going to read the question so that you don't have to. Anne asks or says, Caitlin, you've accomplished so much between your masters, your sports, your clubs, your activities, and leadership. What's next?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not saying I applied this year because I definitely wanted to have this, but I might be looking into some awards, like there's like looking to apply for, there's young CPA like awards, or, like some leadership. I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to put anyone biased, but I'm definitely looking to see if like awards and, for FBLA, maybe I can get on the national board someday or a committee. That might be something new. And I don't know right now. I don't know.
More to come.
Right now,
You'll
with my
find out.
romantic life isn't the best, but maybe like getting married and having kids. I would love to do that eventually. Like I know that sounds weird. Like Caitlin, shouldn't, because I know there's some people, or historically there have been people that wouldn't want people like me reproducing, but I do want to have kids. I don't care if they have autism or not. Like I want to be a mom someday.
And for now, you're practicing with your cats, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Mike says, during the job application process, what are your thoughts on checking the box in the "do you have a disability" area of the job application? Do you
Obviously,
check the box or not?
I always checked it because I always want to have that like as a record in case they hired me, that I clicked this, but I believe it's a person's idea, because it's just the stigmatization of disability has been so bad that I can understand why some people may not want to check it. But I think, with how the ADA is set up, you need to have that accommodations. You need to disclose it to your employers. I wouldn't have got my accommodations if I wasn't officially diagnosed by Children's Hospital and repeatedly having doctors confirm that I still have it. Yes, I am an adult that has autism. Not has autism. Like sometimes, like I get into person first language just because that's how I was raised. So if you use person first language, don't freak out. It's okay. We're all learning to be better, and that's part of my journey is embracing my identity. But the point being, it's a person's choice, and I get why it's necessary. I wish accommodations were just freely given and not, but I understand. I don't know if do you think that answered the question? Like, I'm just like, I get why it exists, but I'm not happy about. But
yeah, I think the point, and you've made it in several different ways, Caitlin, is that all of these things are very personal. And very much dependent on your own experience. We have another question from Greg. He says, you mentioned how hard the interview process was. Can you tell us more about why and what could be done differently?
Well, it was really hard for me because, I can be honest now, I'm much more confident in myself. So I think that was part of the reason why. I'm not saying that, like, obviously I've been here for a while, so I get why I wasn't a fit with other people, but some of them, that it was hard for me because I was trying to impress them, and I was trying. It's hard to be, and you have to be yourself in interviews, but it's hard when you're trying to hide something that is fundamental to yourself, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm like trying to find this balance of being authentic and not scaring people off, because if I don't look, I'll be honest, if I didn't look people in the eye, if I didn't have a strong handshake, or if I didn't have concise answers, I don't think they would have hired me. And like, that's what happened in interviews, that I wasn't concise, or I didn't like, so it's like, I think it's also on the other end that you have to be more accepting, and like there's rules, and like I know EY has a program that they have rules specific, they're looking specifically for autistic people to fill them, that if they don't look at the eye, don't immediately cross them off. Like, see if they're actually qualified to do the job.
Okay.
And what could be done differently? Yeah, that's could be done differently. And now I have more confidence. And also, as I made a joke about before, being understaffed, being understaffed is prevalent in public accounting. I'm much more comfortable if there are people I just want to mention, there are people at my job that are here. So, but I'm just saying, like, if there was an opportunity to rise, I feel pretty confident in I feel pretty good about my abilities to interview, that I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think I could have focused more on being myself.
Yeah, what I heard you say earlier made me think that we all mask at least some part of ourselves, right? And especially in the interview process, and that for you, it took a lot of extra effort.
Absolutely. I believe we all mask bits of our spots to make ourselves more palatable to, other people, but it's definitely like masking, like it's more of a survival mode for people, autistic people, because if you don't mask well, you get excluded, you get bullied, you don't get jobs, and if you don't have a job, you have a hard time getting health care. And if you have disability, you're only allowed. That's another thing we need to fix, like national things about how disability, like I'm talking, that's a whole, that you're only allowed $2,000 in assets. And so you have to be really poor to get the healthcare that you need. So that's another issue that I can spend, but yes.
We're going to do the last question, Caitlin. But I'm going to read a couple of things here. So Patrick says, Caitlin, you are amazing and a wonderful ambassador of those who also walk in your shoes. In your current job, how have your peers and associates, as well as your supervisory staff, helped you in your success within your position and the firm?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be here without, like, I have mentor meetings with my official mentor, Sarah, most times during busy season, we might skip a week or two because we're both very busy and very exhausted. But I like the frequent checkups because that way, like if there's a problem, I can stop it immediately. So clear communication. And also, well, I can't say for all autistic people, I want to make that perfectly clear. I tell them, be blunt with me. I don't do, like, that's some of the problems I had at the early in my career, like that I didn't tell them to be blunt with me. So they were giving me hints about my performance or hints about how I can improve. And it went over my head. So being blunt, like Sarah's told me, Caitlin, you need your desk, you need to be cleaned, because sometimes, yes, I am, because if I don't work on it, I am disorganized. So she'll tell me, Caitlin, do this, or Caitlin, don't do this, So that really, just being upfront with other people has really helped. It's like if I didn't do well for the client, he sat me down and be like, hey, this is things that you need to improve upon. So just being blunt and also just being accepting and having those written procedures and having, that I haven't, and just, that I've always been invited to, lunch with, like those off the hour, happy hours or parties that I always am, that I'm always included. And so include people, like being included, that don't treat people like a token, like that they're like, so yeah. Do you think I answered, but like the written procedures really helped,
And I think people really appreciate the be blunt.
Yes.
I think, sometimes we all need to be given the blunt piece of information, right? But the point about just having it go over your head is really useful.
Yes, it's like, and I'm not saying that no one was ever mean to me. You can still be blunt and not be like, Caitlin, you're a disgusting piece of filth, or, like no one has ever told that to me, but, like you can still be blunt. And I know sometimes in public accounting, we're a people person, like we work with the public, but with me, you can be blunt. And I have working on my skills to make sure that I don't miss the soft signs, because I understand not everyone is like that. And it's my job and I don't want to be blunt to someone else if that's not how they best receive information. So communication is a two-way street. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah. So Rick writes, thank you, Caitlin, and thanks for sharing your story. I know it takes a lot of courage to be out there, and your leadership is greatly needed. You are a great role model for so many. By the way, you may be familiar with Firefly Autism in Lakewood, and if not, check them out on Google. They're led by Jesse, I may not pronounce this correctly, Ogus, perhaps, and he is doing some awesome work. So that's a recommendation for you, Caitlin, if you're not familiar, but it's also information for others.
I'll be honest, I am not, like, I'll be honest, I have a pretty busy life. Like I definitely, if I do something, I tend to do it, like, not saying over, but like, sometimes I do go over this little, like, this is my energy and my activities go over. So I have to but I will definitely check that out. Right now I'm part of there is an organization right now that I'm connecting with. I'm in a support group with other autistic women. So, and that has been going so well so far, but I will definitely check that out because I'm always looking for good autistic, or good autism organizations, because I'll be honest, if you learn nothing from my presentation, please do not support autism. Please do not light up blue. Please make my April a little easier. So yes,
I'm going to read you two more things in the chat, Caitlin, and then we're going to wrap this up. Greg writes, Caitlin, thank you so much. I learned so much from your story. It was incredibly helpful. And Jennifer writes, Caitlin, thank you for sharing your story. We so appreciate your time, insight, and the wonderful thought you put into this. I echo the comments, and there are others in the chat earlier as well about how much people appreciated you doing this for us today. I would remind you all that this is a series, and so our next event will be August 25th, noon to 1:15 on Mountain Time, and it will feature Ong Sherpa on the Sherpa Sharwa ethnic group of Nepal. And I just had that moment of, oh my gosh, Caitlin, I cut you off. First of all, I cut you off. Second of all, I cut you off before we actually had to. So I'm going to go back because there's another comment in here as well. Several more people have chimed in with thank you, Caitlin. So with that, I'm going to give you your few minutes of anything else you'd like to tell all the folks who have participated today.
I just want to say thank you for sharing your time. I know I can't tell everyone's profession, but I assume that you're in accounting, which is always, even if you're not in public, it's still very busy. So I really want to thank you that. And I just want to really emphasize, this could be like a child, or let the autistic person or disabled, they will let you know what they can and cannot do. Like for me, I can't ride a bike, but you know what? I can ride a car. And I passed the CPA exam the first time. I didn't get the perfect 300 score, but you know what? I'll take it. So I can tell you, just let them tell you. Don't assume oh, they can't do this, or let them tell you, and respect that, because it's I still don't have the best handwriting in the world. No amount of occupational therapy is going to fix that.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful reminder, Caitlin, that it is okay, based on what you've said so far.
Yes.
Ask, what do you prefer?
Yes.
And then pay attention and do that.
Oh, absolutely. I have no problems with people asking, how do you identify with, are you autistic or person first language? And I'll say I prefer identity first language, because I don't appreciate when a non-autistic person immediately puts person first language onto me. And I'm that's not how I identify. I'm not on to be rude, but I get it. But I definitely just ask. I think that's a good, good, and mirror what I say. If I refer to myself as autistic, you can refer. So
you have given us all many, many great pointers and things to think about as well, Caitlin. Thank you so much for leading off the individual stories. And I encourage all of you who have participated today to take a look at the rest of the stories in the series and participate again. We, in the working group, started this whole effort intentionally the way we have, so that there are lots of facets represented. It's not just about a particular ethnicity or a particular gender identity or a particular orientation decision. It is about diversity, equity, and inclusion across another spectrum, the entire human spectrum. Thanks so much for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on a future event. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks. And thank you for being leaders in the profession, but for willing to hear me talk. So
we love to hear you talk.
Thank you. Well, everyone have a wonderful day. If you're in Colorado, it's still really hot, so keep cool, and good luck with whatever project you're working on. So, all right.